Okay, welcome back. So in this S3 Human Sciences class, we're going to talk about volcanoes and volcanic activity. We already mentioned this before. So volcanoes can appear when plates, those parts of the crust, separate and collide. Okay. So what happens when there's volcanic activity? That's what we're going to talk about today. So most of this happens around the edge of the Pacific plate. Therefore, you have, the idea of the Pacific Ring of Fire. The Pacific Ring of Fire, that's an area in the world, as you can see here on the map, where you have a good number of volcanoes underwater and also on land. Okay, so it forms a kind of ring. The volcanoes form a kind of ring. So there you have a lot of, in this part of the world, you have a lot of volcanic activity. Like we saw before, it's because of the movement of the magma um, in the mantle. You know, it's that movement or those movements that cause the plates to either move apart, away from each other, or to collide into each other. So you can see here, so the oceanic crust part of this, bigger crust, if it moves this way, moves that way, and then eventually the magma would come out. And in this case, these are constructive boundaries because you would have new land appearing here. Because of this, you can also have, because of the movement of plates, you can also have mid-ocean ridges. So, a ridge is like this. Imagine if you're eating potato chips that are ridged, that have ribs, that have like a folded appearance. So those are ridges. So these things here, as you can see, those are ridges. Some parts are higher than others. Or you can also say that you have trenches in between those mounds. Okay, so this is a picture of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, or the MAR. It's long, as you can see. It's 16,000 kilometers long. It stretches from, here in the south all the way up to the North Atlantic. So this was only discovered by uh, explorers in 1872 and confirmed thanks to sonar technology in 1925. So magma flowed through the cracks or the fissures here. As you can see, that's a crack or a fissure. And then the magma would come out and cool down, and the magma would be piled on the ocean floor. So when that hardened, the magma came to form the MAR, the ridge here. So you can imagine that all along, you know, the the bottom of the ocean, this is the Atlantic. You have something like this that snakes from south to north. This is still happening. It's happening very slowly. It repeats itself. So, you know, the hardened magma is pushed to the sides by, new magma that's coming out. And because of this, the sea floor is spreading. Okay, it's widening. And this is happening very, very slowly. Also, because of the movement of the plates, you can also have volcanic islands. As you can see here, there's an example. Across Iceland, you have these volcanoes formed because of plate movement. There are different types of volcano. So you have active ones. They still erupt, they still explode regularly. For instance, Mount Etna in Sicily. So you saw that here. That's a picture of Mount Etna. You also have Mount St. Helens in the US. Those are still active volcanoes because they can still erupt. Dormant volcanoes are, they're sort of sleeping. They have erupted in the past, but they haven't done so in a long time. But there's always a possibility that they would erupt again. That's the case for Mount Vesuvius in Italy, which we've talked about before. Okay, it had already erupted in the past. The last time it erupted was 1944, and it can still erupt in the future. And you also have, volcanoes that are extinct. So they've never erupted, or at least we're not aware of these volcanoes erupting anytime in the course of history. Now, what happens, what actually happens during a volcanic eruption? So you have a volcanic mountain here. As you can see, it's cone shaped. It is connected. This is the result of activity here. So this is the mantle, and the upper part, that's the crust. You have, rising temperature, rising pressure here in the magma chamber in the mantle. So the magma goes up through the vent. That's a vent, like a tube, a vertical tube, you can imagine. And once the magma reaches the surface, you can call it lava. And lava flows to the sides, as you can see. So it comes out of the crater. That's the mouth of the volcano, the crater. So the volcano erupts, lava comes out, also ash, rocks, volcanic rock is called pumice. And then ash clouds also form here, volcanic ash clouds. And the lava tends to go to the side, so it will be deposited, the lava will be deposited on either side, thus forming this cone-shaped feature of the land. Okay, I hope that's clear. You can also refer to page 17 of your book, because we've been talking about volcanoes, and in particular, the focus for our purposes is Mount Etna. So why is it that Mount Etna erupts? Okay, it's because of the African plate pushing against the Eurasian plate. And what happens here is a process that you've heard about before. It's subduction. So because of the friction created, the tension created by one plate pushing against another one, so you have pressure, the African plate goes down, it sinks under the Eurasian plate. Again, this is called subduction. This creates friction in this area, causes higher temperatures. And so because of the pressure here, you would have magma trying to get out this way, going up. The magma is trying to get to the surface. Okay. I hope that's clear. Now, because of this process, you would have eruptions, volcanic eruptions. So the volcanoes will explode because they would need to release the pressure and all that pent up magma here, and it will come out in an explosion as lava with ash, rock, etc. So an eruption would have negative effects because these gases are not only hot, they can be poisonous. For instance, they contain sulfur dioxide. Uh, they can cause acid rain, so that's bad for people living nearby and also for the crops. And once the lava flows out of the volcano and down the slopes, and then, a lot of people live near volcanoes, the lava can burn everything that it comes across. You can imagine if people didn't evacuate, people would die. So large numbers of lost human life. The lava could also mix with water, for instance, melted snow. So if you have a mountain and then you have snow on the sides of the mountain, so lava mixes with that. and that becomes lahar. So by the way, a pyroclastic flow, this is material coming from the volcano, and then it's a current of hot gas and volcanic matter. So gas and the things that came from the volcano, mixing together with whatever you have on the side of the mountain, and it flows rather fast along the slope. All along the slope goes down. That's very dangerous. I'll show you, for instance, here. This is what a pyroclastic flow looks like.
Something triggers a pyroclastic flow about 10 times bigger than all that came before. Within moments, it overwhelms the valley.
So you can imagine the destructive power of something like this. That's a pyroclastic flow. You really have to run. And then when when the pyroclastic flow mixes in with water, and you have something that's flowing, overflowing, very powerful. I can also show you a video of that here. Here's an example of lahar. Call this lahar. I believe lahar is an Indonesian name for this phenomenon. So you have things coming out of the volcano, mixing it with the snow, for instance, and you have something that's you know that's lahar. So that's volcanic material mixed with water. It's quite powerful. It can destroy, like villages, wooded areas, cities. Give you an example there. Lahar in Japan, it's very powerful. It will most likely destroy everything in its path. But volcanic eruptions can also have positive effects. So the soil that's made from lava, that's quite good for farming. That's rich in materials, in minerals, and will make the land. It's very fertile. So, for instance, the Campania region, thanks to Mount Vesuvius, that's a place that's also good for farming. So you can understand, although it's a little bit dangerous, people tend to live near or around volcanoes because there's good farmland there. Volcanoes can also become tourist attractions. So these people visiting, you know, the area surrounding Mount Etna in Sicily. You can also have hot springs, geysers. That's a geyser. Geysers are formed where near volcanoes. You can have naturally hot water, so you can have hot baths. That's can be used as thermal energy, and also and you can use that for heating up your home. And like I said, volcanic eruptions, they create new land, and can also create new land for people to live in. Okay, I hope that's clear. Um, in the next videos, we're going to talk about we stay with the Mediterranean region, and we're going to talk about climate and weather in the Mediterranean.